First contact. It's one of the most enduring, thrilling, and terrifying concepts in all of science fiction. The moment humanity realizes it's not alone in the universe. But once the initial shock wears off, the most important and often most difficult question arises. How do we talk to them? For decades, sci fi has grappled with this problem. Sometimes it's as easy as a press of a button. Other times, it's a monumental, mind bending scientific challenge. And in the new blockbuster adaptation of Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, we see perhaps the most unique, charming, and detailed attempt at bridging the species gap yet. Today, we're going to analyze the history of communication difficulties in science fiction. We'll look at the shortcuts, the scientific struggles, and the linguistic leaps. And we'll compare and contrast the ingenious methods of Project Hail Mary with other legendary sci fi shows and movies. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sophist. My name is Bill, and I am a lifelong science fiction fan. When Project Hail Mary was released recently, it really got me thinking about the communication barrier as it is presented in sci-fi. In the early days of sci-fi television, the problem of communication was often treated as a narrative inconvenience. With a 45-minute runtime and a new alien species every week, you couldn't exactly spend 20 minutes on a linguistic lesson. The solution? The get it done device. Star Trek gave us the ultimate example. Introduced early on, the Universal Translator was the perfect magical solution. How does Captain Kirk walk onto a planet on the other side of the galaxy and talk to a green skinned woman about ethics? The device simply scans brainwaves and instant translates concepts and grammar. And it wasn't just Star Trek. Doctor Who uses the TARDIS's translation circuit to achieve the same result. The underlying message was clear. Communication is a matter of technology, not empathy or science. The aliens conveniently almost always thought in ways we could understand, and they almost always seemed to have vocal cords. Even when technology wasn't the answer, the universe seemed to always conspire to have everyone speak English. In Star Wars, R2D2 has C3PO to translate his beeps, and even Chewbacca's roars are understood by those who know him. English, or Galactic Basic, became the default. It simplified the story, but it sterilized the truly alien. But as sci fi matured, it began to explore more plausible ways to bridge the gap. Realizing that vocal speech is incredibly specific to Earth biology, storytellers looked for a more universal language. They found two: math and music. In 1977, Steven Spielberg gave us Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The communication isn't a speech, it's a symphony. The humans and aliens exchange a simple 5-note musical phrase. Math is the key here. The 5 notes are based on a pentatonic scale, a foundational pattern of acoustics that exists because of the physics of a vibrating string. A vibrating string in Andromeda has the same harmonics as one in Hollywood. The aliens were testing our pattern recognition, our understanding of basic mathematical relationships expressed through sound. The final conversation between the synthesizer and the mothership is one of pure, joyous, collaborative pattern matching. It was hopeful, elegant, and entirely nonverbal. 20 years later, Carl Sagan's Contact took a different but complementary approach. Dr. Ellie Arroway detects a signal that's an undeniable beacon of intelligence, a sequence of prime numbers. Math, as Sagan famously argued, is the universal language. Any species that can build a radio telescope understands prime numbers. But the message in Contact had layers. First, the primer, math, then the medium, a video feed, and finally, a 3D blueprint for a machine. Contact showed us that communication would be a process of decoding data, not just having a chat. And in its final, most profound moment, it suggests that some things, the sheer beauty of the cosmos, might be too complex for even the most advanced language to convey. This progression set the stage for what many consider the definitive cinematic exploration of alien communication, Arrival. Directed by Denis Villeneuve and based on Ted Chiang's novella, Arrival threw away all the rules. The heptapods are truly, profoundly alien. They don't have faces. They don't have mouths in the traditional sense. Their communication is split into two non-compatible systems. While the spoken language is complex, the written language, the circular semigrams, is where the film finds its heart. The linguist, Dr. Louise Banks, has to deduce their meaning from scratch. She doesn't start with hello, she starts with human. She uses a whiteboard to build a shared visual vocabulary, just as we would with a person who speaks a different language. But the true genius of Arrival is its central concept, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which is a hypothesis holding that the structure of a language affects the perceptions of reality of its speakers and thus influences their thought patterns and worldviews. Language can thus define consciousness as well as be a reflection of it. Because the heptapod's written language is nonlinear, they write a whole concept, a whole sequence all at once. Learning it rewires Louise's brain. By learning to think like them, she begins to perceive time like them. The language isn't just a way to say things, it's a gift, a tool that unlocks humanity's potential for nonlinear time perception. Arrival argued that the difficulty of communication isn't just about translation, it's about a complete and fundamental restructuring of how we view the universe. And that brings us to the new champion of detailed first contact, Project Hail Mary. Like Andy Weir's The Martian, Project Hail Mary is a story of extreme competence and scientific problem solving. But this time, the protagonist, Ryland Grace, isn't just solving botanical problems. He's solving a fundamental engineering and linguistic one. He encounters Rocky, an Iridian. Rocky is a stone-like eyeless creature. Grace can't see Rocky's expression. Rocky can't see Grace at all. Their biology and sensory systems are 100% incompatible. Grace realizes Rocky doesn't see light. He uses echolocation. And Rocky's speech isn't made of vowels and consonants. It's a sequence of distinct musical tones. The methodology is pure methodical science. Grace starts with the absolute basics. He points to himself and says, Grace. Rocky emits a specific set of notes. Grace logs that note sequence on a custom software program as Grace. He points to Rocky and waits. Rocky understands. New notes. Grace logs Rocky. From here, the process is meticulous. Yes and no, numbers, mathematical constants like pi. Project Hail Mary takes the slow, detailed work of translation we saw on Arrival, but grounds it in the practical, iterative, science it out engineering of The Martian. We watch them build, word by painstakingly recorded word, a shared lexicon of several thousand concepts. And in an incredibly charming narrative twist, the software Grace uses to translate Rocky's tones becomes, in effect, a customized scientific universal translator. If you've read the book and seen the movie, you know that the book does a much more thorough job of going through this process. But in my opinion, I thought the movie did a decent job of compressing it so as not to bore mainstream normies to the point of absolute tears. So how does Project Hail Mary fit into this lineage? It's the synthesis. It rejects the magic of Star Trek's universal translator. While a translator is eventually created, we, the audience, have to watch the painstaking data collection that made it possible. We understand the science behind every word that they speak. It has a spiritual connection to Close Encounters. Both use music as the foundation. But where Close Encounters used music to confirm pattern recognition as an entrance exam, Project Hail Mary uses the inherent physics of music to create a functional vocal system. Rocky's notes are words, not just mathematical signals. This makes their connection feel far more intimate and conversational. Compared to Contact, the communication in Hail Mary is less about data transfer and more about collaboration. While Ellie's aliens should have sent a poet because they can only share a copy of her memories, Grace and Rocky can build something new together, a shared future for two civilizations, designed word by word in their small biodome. And finally, Project Hail Mary offers a charming and optimistic contrast to Arrival. While Arrival showed us that an alien language could completely reshape our perception of time, Project Hail Mary argues that the universal constants of physics, chemistry, and engineering are enough. Rocky and Grace are so different, they can't even stand in the same room without a barrier. But they both understand hydrogen. They both understand orbital mechanics. By centering the communication on shared technical problems, the movie makes a powerful, hope-filled argument. Cooperation isn't just possible, it's the most natural consequence of intelligence. From the simple press of a button in the 60s to the meticulously engineered linguistic software of Project Hail Mary, Our portrayal of alien communication has mirrored our own evolving understanding of science, empathy, and the cosmos. We used to want it easy. We used to want them to speak English and think like us. But as our stories grew more sophisticated, we embraced the challenge. We learned to look for math and listen for music. We learned that the true gift of understanding might be a change in perspective. Project Hail Mary shows us that even the most extreme biology gap can be bridged with patience, curiosity, and a willingness to science the shit out of the problem. It's not just about realizing we are not alone, it's about realizing we are all, at our core, potential collaborators. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite example in sci fi of two species trying to figure out the communication barrier? Please hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to my channel so you can get notified of future videos. Take care, guys.